Well, hello there. My name is Anne Marie Page, and welcome to our neighborhood. Your neighborhood and my neighborhood make our neighborhood. Lowell's a good neighborhood. Now, we have, for our guest today, Eric Slagle, who's the Director of Development Services in the Planning and Development Department. And we have had Eric on before, so we're here for a little update. Fill you in on some things you need to know and things that are good to make our city a little nicer looking than it is. So, our top priority and our big favorite question, vacant or abandoned properties. What in heaven's name is the process on that one?
Well, thanks, Anne-Marie, for having me. I really appreciate being here.
Thank you for coming.
So this is an issue that strikes a lot of Lowell neighborhoods hard. I know that Centerville is one of them. You and I have talked about it before.
Right.
Ever since the kind of foreclosure crisis in the late 2000s, we have kind of a raft of these vacant and abandoned properties that are, quite frankly, constituting a blight on some of the neighborhoods in the city.
Right.
So we've been trying very hard to develop processes in the city to deal with these properties at various different stages. As you know, sometimes the hardest thing about these properties is finding out who the actual owner is.
Oh, yes.
The paper trail can be a little bit complicated, but what we do with my staff at Development Services, we try to do background research into the Registry of Deeds to find out who the lenders are and who the property owners of record are. And those are our first points of contact when we get a complaint, say from a neighborhood group or from a concerned citizen about a vacant or abandoned property. We reach out to those either lenders or property owners to let them know that they need to do basic minimum maintenance. They need to make sure that the building is secured, and ideally do everything they can to make sure that it's not vacant.
That's it.
But that can be a challenge.
Right, because that's an attractive nuisance, and what makes everybody nervous is fire.
And that's something that makes us nervous and the fire department nervous as well. Also, you know, the vacant lots can be a haven for squatters.
The new dump.
Yeah, for the leaving of
furniture
materials,
and other little things.
Lots of lovely things that the neighbors really hate.
Right.
And just the basic kind of view of the neighborhood, they also contribute to the neighborhood not being as safe.
That's right.
Because you have, you know, the blank spots in the occupied spaces, you know, it can create a little bit of blight in the neighborhood.
Right, we had one, and that's what first one neighbor called, and it was cats were getting in through the cellar. And this was a nice house that had always been taken care of. Then the next call I get is, hi, Anne-Marie, I'm looking at a breaking and entering. Really? And the teenage kids were going into the house itself. So we called the police. They came right up, and the city boarded up the cellar and the first floor so they wouldn't get in. And the house really wasn't damaged or in bad shape, but the teenage kids had said to the police officer, yeah, that's the word downtown. If you're looking for a place to chill out or whatever that is they use, what word they use this year, I don't know. That's where you go, and that's what they were doing.
Yeah, so that is one thing that we do. The city went out to bid and has had a contract for many years with the board up company. So my staff is in regular contact with that company.
Yeah, they were up there in a snap.
If we have a vacant property that is not secured,
right,
we have the means to get it secured as soon as possible. One of the key things that I'd say to you and all of the folks watching the program is, as obvious as these properties may be to folks in the neighborhood, you need to let us know if there's a property like this that you're aware of, because just because everybody on your street knows that it's vacant doesn't mean that my staff knows that it's vacant or abandoned. And if we don't know that something's a problem, there's no way that we can start to address it.
Back to the old famous see something, say something.
There you go.
You know, which is like our logo of the world for the neighborhood leaders. But it is. If it doesn't look right, doesn't sound right, doesn't smell right, it isn't right.
Yes.
You know, you need to call into somebody.
Right.
I mean, you can call, even if you call into the non-emergency line for the police department, the 937-3200, they'll get in touch with your department.
Yes.
And when they put this up on the screen today, they're going to put the Development Department Inspectional Services, the 674-4144 number.
Yes, so that's the direct line to get to
Yeah.
our department. If you have any questions about anything that we talk about today,
That's right.
but especially these kind of properties, the 978-674-4144 goes
Right, and that's the
directly to
number
our
they'll put on the screen.
main line.
And it is. And the 978's our little Massachusetts hangout, and the 674 gets you in the front door of City Hall. Somebody has to get rid of that answering machine. And the 4144 gets you into your office.
That's us.
So that's why it's important to know those little numbers. And you're right. If they don't, you have to see something, say something, because you can't be every place. The
Right.
fire and police can't be every place, right?
We
So-
all have our kind of our defined roles,
Right.
and my staff, unfortunately, there's approximately 24,000 properties
Oh, yeah.
in the city of Lowell. There's not enough city staff to
That's
be
it.
aware of the status of every one of them, and even if we are aware of a property, it's always helpful to have neighbors let us
Right.
know if problems are cropping up,
Well, that's
because
it.
we can't
you
be
know?
everywhere.
Right, now we've
at
got
all
this little
times.
pile of furniture. If you're looking for a well-used, rained-on, wind-blown couch, we have one of those, and a few other things, you know. And they're getting closer to the building. So this is a wooden structure, so that then makes you nervous, you know. All you need is one little, what's the word I'm looking for?
Spark.
Yeah, that'll work. I was going to say one nutcase with a cigarette, but spark sounds better.
Yeah.
But you're right. You know, that's all it takes, and then you've got a
Right.
serious problem.
So we actually kind of the other steps that we take. The manager has a blighted property task force.
Yes.
That involves both development services, the police department, the fire department, in an effort to try and keep a catalog and an inventory of these properties, and more importantly for, I think, the city, to keep a record of what the status is. Are these properties moving, or are they lingering?
Mm-hmm.
The city, back in 2010, the city council passed an ordinance, a vacant and foreclosed ordinance, that requires property owners or lenders with respect to these properties to register with the city.
Right.
And we do have the power to issue fines to them if they don't register. But again, if we don't know the property's there,
Right.
we don't know
that's
to
it.
be acting
You know,
on it.
that's
So
it.
that's
That's
kind of
what
one of
we're
the
trying to
keys.
say to people out there. You have to be the eyes and ears. This is your neighborhood. This is where you're raising your family. You know, doesn't look right, doesn't sound right, doesn't smell right. You know it's not right.
Right.
You've got to pick up that phone and call. And that's what we're asking people to do. I mean, this is where we live with our family. We want to have a nice neighborhood. We want to have nice neighbors, and good neighbors take care of each other.
Right. And
Watch
so
out for each other.
We will go out to a property.
Oh,
We'll
yes.
investigate. We'll write violations for minimum maintenance and
Right.
for overgrowth if that's necessary. And eventually, we could even kind of move. We even sometimes move as far as kind of the receivership process, which is the process by which the city can have the court appoint a receiver to take responsibility for the property and do any kind of code remedies to the property to bring it up to code.
Right.
That's something we do as a last resort. We don't like to get into receivership particularly often, because you're basically going to end up taking people's property.
Right.
But at a certain point, it does rise to that level where we
Right.
have to.
I mean, if you've dotted all your I's, crossed all your T's, you've done everything you can do, and this is your last resort, if that's what's best for that neighborhood and the people that are living there with their families, that might be your last resort, but now we're there.
Right. So we are actually, right now we're taking a close look at Centerville, and we're trying to get an accurate gauge as to the vacant properties in the Centerville neighborhood, and make sure that we have an accurate status on all of those properties.
Right.
And I anticipate they're going to be doing this, going through the neighborhoods and doing a kind of a close evaluation of each neighborhood in the city, but we are starting with Centerville. So I would encourage that anybody who is watching this program, or
Right.
anybody that you talk to, if you know of a property that's causing a problem for the neighborhood because of the state of repair that it's in,
That's it,
especially
right.
if it's vacant or abandoned, please let us know
Right.
so that we can get it on the list.
And
to-
we'll send a
respond
little refresher note out to the neighborhood leaders. Even though they don't meet in the summer, right? Quite a few don't meet in the summer. Some do, some don't. But they still connect with their email, keep in touch with their board and their offices. So you're right, that's the word you want to get out there, right? So we are your eyes and ears, so it's up to us to speak up. Squeaky wheel gets the oil. I think I heard that someplace.
Yes, no,
Well, you know, we're doing very good on this and how your process works. I know it's tricky, but they're telling us we have like 2 minutes left. So we're going to go and let them have their break, and then they'll come back, and then we will pick up on our other little problem here. But we're glad to hear that the manager did put together this property tax force.
Yes.
Right?
And
that was a good thing to do.
It's important because it gets all of those interested departments in the same room.
That's it.
Sometimes, historically, we wouldn't know if the police department was having a problem with the property,
That's
and they
it.
wouldn't know if we were having a problem with the property.
Right.
It's amazing how much those properties overlap.
Right.
So,
And a lot of times in other things prior to this, that would be the problem. If the left hand didn't know what the right hand was doing, they can't work as a team.
right.
And the whole idea is to have all of you to be team players.
Yes.
We're on the same team. We're here to do what's best for our neighborhood and our city, right? It's not, oh, that's mine, no, that's yours, no, that's yours, that goes to him. It's, hey, this is what's going to work. This is what we're going to do. Count to 10.
Right. And we have a very good working relationship with the fire department and the police department now, and we've actively cooperate on dealing with these problem properties and making sure that they get the attention that they need.
Right.
And to spur either the landlords or the lenders
Right.
to bring them back into active use. A, it's good for the neighborhood. B,
It
it's
is.
good for the tax rolls.
Sure, it's good for everybody.
Because oftentimes these properties are abandoned,
Yeah.
they're not paying their taxes
No,
either.
they're
So
just
that's
sitting there.
that can
We
be a
have one
problem
that's
as well.
been sitting there for almost 20 years. That's a heartbreaker. So now we're going to take a little quickie break. So since I hear it's hot outside, you might want to chill down your lemonade instead of heating up your coffee. Don't touch that channel remote control thing that my husband just loves. And we shall be right back. We're going to pick up. See, that went by so fast you didn't even know it. So just remember, you see something, you say something. Okay? Be right back.
Body language can tell you all sorts of things. Like someone is having a stroke. Know the sudden signs. Learn fast. Face drooping, arm weakness, speech difficulty. Time to call 911 and get them to a hospital immediately. Learn the body language and spot a stroke fast.
Yeah, we came back. I told you we'd be back. And my name is Anne Marie Page, and you're watching Our Neighborhood. Welcome to Our Neighborhood. And our special guest today is Eric Slagle, Director of Development Services. Did I get it right?
Development Services, that's us.
Development Services, which we call Inspectional Services, but that's the fancy name. And they're going to put his name up on the board, and they're going to put his telephone number. The 978 gets you into Lowell, the 674 gets you into City Hall, and the 4144 gets you right where you want to be. So we just tore apart all this thing about abandoned properties,
Yes.
and we're all going to see something, say something, and we're going to call that number and tell them, hey, this house is empty, it's been empty for 3 years, I'm tired of looking at it, do something. That's it. And the manager does have a property tax force targeting these properties. We're happy. Now, here's a little thing a lot of people don't know about. Streamlining that permit process on what do homeowners have to know about building permits?
Well, this is an issue that comes up a lot, especially with owner-occupied properties.
Right.
I think there's a little bit of confusion out among the public about what your rights and responsibilities are with respect to both building permits and plumbing permits and electrical permits. And so I think it's good for us to share some of this information with your
Right, because you
viewers.
don't think about it.
So there are some general rules. The best thing you have is if you have a question, call the number.
That's right.
Because the
You're
person who
right.
answers the phone
Yep.
will be able to answer your exact question.
Good.
But the general rules are this. If you're painting, you don't need a permit.
Good.
If you are touching your windows and taking them off, or touching your siding and taking them off, touching your doors and taking them off, you need to come and talk to us and get a permit.
Oh, that's good to know.
If you're touching anything having to do with the plumbing, you need to come and talk to us about getting a permit. If you're touching anything having to do with the electricity, you need to come and talk to us about getting a permit. And I think there's kind of a misunderstanding, especially about the plumbing and electrical piece. I'm not talking about plugging in and unplugging something from the wall.
Yeah.
That you can do without a permit, obviously.
I don't like to do that.
But if you are taking off or dealing with the inside of the electrical outlets, or taking down light fixtures, and replacing them with other light fixtures, any moving light switches around, that's all permitted work. And so either you or the electrician that you hire really needs to make sure that they get a permit. Unfortunately, sometimes there are some contractors in the city that don't follow the rules. That's a warning sign for folks. If your contractor is telling you that they don't want to or don't need to pull a permit for something,
that's scary,
and you're not sure about it, you need to give us a call, because the benefits of pulling a permit are that you get an inspector to come out and make sure that the work is done right.
That's right. We had put in, I'm like always freezing cold, and the first year we were both retired, it cost me $4,000 to heat the house. I bought half of Saudi Arabia that year. So I said, and we bought a gas fireplace, and they got a permit. And then the plumber guy came, and then the electrical guy came. And then everything got inspected. But you wanted to. You don't want your house to burn down in the middle of the night.
And so there are some unscrupulous contractors, unfortunately, in the world, and they will tell people that they don't need to get a permit, or they just won't mention it at all and don't bother to get a permit. That puts lots of things at risk. We are seeing an uptake, especially in the last 5 or 6 years or so, in insurance companies not being willing to pay to replace things if the homeowner didn't get permits to put them in. So
that's a good point. They should, and when you're going to insure, because I'm a big insurance nut, I want everything insured. They should say that to you now. They should give you a little cheat sheet. If you're going to do plumbing work or electrical or something, you need to pull a permit so it's inspected to be sure it's safe for you and your family. I mean, you could get that on a 3x5 card, but at least, and then, you can tell them. And if you don't pull a permit, you don't follow, and something happens, too bad, so sad.
And so the insurance companies have been being very diligent about checking up to make sure that work that's, especially new work that's done on properties, are permitted. And that can leave folks in the lurch. If you haven't been careful when you get contracted work done on your property, or you try to do something on your own without getting permits, you can find yourself in a bad situation if, God forbid, there's a fire or some calamity at your house. You might not be able to get the insurance company to pay for that. Kind of in the same vein, for building permits, doing things like patching holes in the wall.
Like Bob knows how to do that.
You can do that without a permit, obviously. You're doing maintenance.
I want that room pink, Paint the room.
Yes.
That was like, remember how I showed you only wore black, white, and red when we were dating because of colorblind? I went out one day, this is when we had the apartment before about our house, and we had a big, huge living room, and it had 3 bay windows. It had like drawers for your dining room dishes or something, and glass doors over that, 2 French doors to go into another room, a door to go out to the hall, a door to go to the bedroom, and a door to go to the kitchen. And crown molding, and the one that goes on the bottom. I went out for the day, and I came home. Every piece of wood in that room, and it was a big old house, was painted. Every single piece of wood.
How did that make you feel?
Gee, you've been busy, honey. Oh, how do you like it? Well, it looks very nice. How come you painted it pink? This is what I got. I didn't paint it pink. I painted it white. Well, honey, maybe you painted it white, but it dried pink.
Oh, geez.
So I got, and he'll never live that down.
Well, luckily for him, he didn't need to get any building permits to do any kind of painting.
Yeah, well, as you said, painting.
But if you're taking off drywall from a
Yeah.
wall and you're getting behind the wall,
Right.
that requires you to get a permit. Anything with the ceilings, taking down ceilings, anything
Right.
structural, you're adding any kind of rooms
Yeah.
or remodeling a bathroom, even remodeling a kitchen where all you're doing is taking out cabinetry, it's
Right.
best to call us because
Right.
sometimes those projects also
Right.
have work that require permits, like
Yeah.
plumbing permits or electrical permits.
Well, that's it. We don't touch, like Bob knows how to hammer in something like that and that stuff, but never touch electrical or plumbing. Never, never. If it says plumbing, electrical, you call a licensed plumber and a licensed electrician and have them do whatever.
Right. So
No, too dangerous.
That is important. You need to call licensed contractors,
Mm-hmm.
and a good contractor will always pull a permit. So
That's
if they
good.
tell you that they
Right.
don't want to,
Yeah.
that's a red flag.
Well, I know in the past it was like a royal pain in the neck, but they simplified the process.
We have.
They did,
We
right.
worked very hard to try to make the permitting process as easy for folks coming into the
That's it.
city,
Right.
to City Hall, and
Right.
quite frankly, easier for us to
Right.
manage as
That's
well.
it. You're right.
And so,
Yeah, the Sesame Street pattern.
yes. But even if it's going to take you a little bit of time to get a permit,
Right.
it's much better. You're much better off doing
Right.
that than trying to do work without a permit.
You don't want to. You might think, oh, it's a bother and all this, but you know what? Safety is the top priority. I don't want to wake up tomorrow morning and find out half of the house burnt down. I'm very touchy about that.
The key way that I explain it to people is, you are getting you're paying for a permit, but you're getting a third-party inspector
Right,
who
to
isn't
make
beholden to that
that's it.
contractor to
That's
come in and
right.
make sure that everything's done right.
That's right. That's what you want.
And way more often than
Yeah.
I think you'd hope,
Yeah.
we have our inspectors go out and
Right.
find out that the contractor's done something wrong, and then they have to redo it, and the homeowner should not be responsible for
Yeah.
that. So having one of our inspectors come out and take a look at work that you're doing on your property
Right.
is just a really smart thing to do.
No, I agree with you. And like, I don't even like to plug in the toaster. I don't like anything electrical. Right?
On that same vein, I just want to mention to folks, if you are hiring a licensed contractor, you do want to make sure you get copies of their insurance.
Oh, you're right.
This is
That's a
another
good point.
another thing that we see
Yeah.
sometimes is contractors are required, contractors who pull building permits are required to maintain liability insurance.
Right.
So that's a risk that you're also
Right.
running if you're not getting permits.
That's a good idea, because I remember years ago, our house is over 100 years old, and we've been in there like 51 years, but I think at one time part of the roof or something in the roof, I don't know, like the front part has a cupola, has slate on it. Everybody shivers when you say slate, but the other part is regular. And so I had the man come and looked at it and everything, and I made sure he had his license, and I knew who he was, and he did. And then I called my insurance company, and they said, if he has insurance and he's licensed, he can do that, and you're covered by your insurance
Right.
because you hired him
Right.
to do that, right?
And that's another thing. Any kind of roofing job, you're going to need to pull permits for. You're pulling off your siding,
Right.
you're going to need to pull permits for. And unfortunately, roofing and siding work is one type of work where we often see contractors showing up in the city
Yeah.
and doing work without pulling permits. So
Right.
I want everybody to be really careful and thoughtful about that type
Right.
of work. If your contractor says they can only work on a weekend and they just show up in the morning and they leave in the afternoon and never show up during the week when our inspectors are on,
Yeah.
that's kind of
Clue.
that's a clue that you might want to just double check and make sure that they've actually pulled
Right.
the proper permits. And again, this all comes back to, like you said, safety.
Yeah, it is. It's safety. That's what it's all about.
We,
you know?
we are not doing this to try and turn a profit.
No.
We're doing this because people need to have the experts check to make sure that folks that things are done right.
Well,
with
that's
their
it. I
building.
mean, you have a lot to do just with inspectionals, but this is, like you said, everything we've talked about and everything we're doing, it all comes down to safety.
Yes.
So they're giving us the high sign. We got 2 minutes. Is there anything you want to throw on that table?
Well, I guess I just want to kind of reiterate what I've said before, which is if you have anything, if you're touching your property in any way and you have some questions,
Call.
that's the number to call.
Right.
We have folks who, if for some reason they can't answer the phone right away, they'll be glad to give you a call back
Right.
and answer any kind of questions you have about the permitting process. This is a case when you're dealing with issues like this. We'd much rather spend our time answering your questions beforehand than
Right.
go up and trying to clean up the mess afterwards.
Afterwards, you're right.
We are in the business of trying to make the neighborhoods in Lowell
That's
safer,
it. Right.
and make the city, the buildings and the
Right.
properties, the residences in Lowell safe for the folks who live there.
That's it.
The best thing for us is if the folks out there would
Yeah.
give us a call and ask us
Right.
any questions.
I always tell people that. I said, rules are there to protect you. I taught CCD once, and I'd start with, and I'd go like this, and I'd say, these are tablets, 3 rules on this side, 7 on that. You don't mess around with them, life won't be too tough. You got any questions? Or the end of it. But
you
that's
go.
it. The rules are there for our safety to protect us. All right, you've been wonderful. Thank you, Eric,
Thank you,
very
Anne
much.
Marie.
We've got your number out there. We get your name out there. And remember, your neighborhood, my neighborhood, make our neighborhood Lowell's a good neighborhood. You keep it that way. You see something, you say something. Take care.